Hi, thanks for visiting my channel. Today we're going to be discussing the integer types. And then, yeah, tip, consider the size of the integer that you need to save to the database. So how much data do you really need? Alright, that's the thing that you need to understand or consider. And then we're not gonna be discussing display width. We're just gonna skip this one. We're gonna go down to the actual data types. Alright, bool, boolean, and int are just one and the same. By the way, the default, if you try to create a table using bool or boolean, it will just default to TINYINT. Okay, and then it's an integer value, of course, that saves 8 bits of data. That's equivalent to 1 byte. And the total size, if you use a TINYINT, is 255 decimal, or this, if you convert it to decimal, that's the size. All right, and there's two things to consider as well. If it's signed, which is the default, then you will start with from negative 128 up to 127. So meaning if you put negative, more than negative 128, the database will actually give you an error. And if it's more than 127, same deal, it will give you errors. Alright, that's a default. It is actually signed. And then the next one is TINYINT unsigned, meaning it maximizes the actual value from 0 to 255. Alright, so again, if you specify your TINYINT to be unsigned, then if you try to put negative 1, it will give you an error in your database. If you try to put more than 255, it will also give you an error. And of course, it has a display width, but we're not going to be discussing this. And then if you understand how TINYINT works, then small int, medium int, and big int will just be a walk in the park. Okay, the only difference is the actual size, as you can see here, from 255 down to 65,535, and then so on and so forth. So like I said, the only difference between these integer types are their sizes. What else? This is the biggest, of course, the big int, and then the smallest is the TINYINT, and then the most common ones that you'll see in a table is the int. All right, usually in IDs, records, you'll be using int. All right, so just to get you up to speed, if you do not want to discuss what this one really means, you can just skip, this my next explanation, because it's gonna be a little bit deep. Okay, just consider that these values here are the maximum that your data type can accommodate, and also consider if they're using signed or unsigned. All right, that's how to use these data types in a nutshell. but it doesn't hurt if you will try to understand what these things really mean. 8 bits, you know, and then why is it equal to 255? Alright, so I'm gonna present a picture right here that I draw on paper. So this is how I would say my 2 cents and how the memory works and how it is saved in the memory. It's not really exactly how it is saved in the memory, but I believe this is the sort of analogy. Alright, so the first thing that we need to understand is the combination. Remember the ASCII earlier on the earlier videos that you have, for example, you have 0, 0 or 8 zeros that's equal to 0. Just an example, an analogy, so it's just the combination. So if you have two things, example 1 and 0, and you have like 8 spaces that you can make combinations. Alright, so it's just basic math combination. So the total available unique combination is 255. Alright, so that's the maximum combination. Maximum combination. So just put that one in your mind. Alright, and we're going to actually explain one SQL command here. For example, you're going to be creating a table named test with one column named mynum, and then you put or select the integer type or the data type as TINYINT. So automatically what happens is MySql uses the TINYINT or the 8 bits, the 1 and the 0, and creates a so-called reserved spaces. That's going to be 8 spaces in the memory for this variable mynum. So usually you can represent like an array of spaces. So this is the memory. Usually it has an address. Alright, usually starts with 0, but we're not going to be like digging a lot deeper to that one because it's really technical. But my point here is that when you say you're declaring an int type, automatically you're going to be reserving 8 spaces for the variable mynum. Okay, and by default, when you don't specify a type modifier here, it will default to a signed number. Alright, remember when it's a signed number, it is actually if it's a signed number, it starts with 128 and ends in actually negative 128 up to 127 if it is signed. If it's unsigned, it's 0 to 255. Alright, let me just go back to the other one. Alright, so so here it's signed numbers. So basically the maximum combination, if I do this, will be equivalent to 127 as agreed upon if it's signed. So you can think of it like this: if internally the 8 bits that will be used are all zeros, will be automatically equivalent to 128, and then so on and so forth until you reach the 127. Alright, so I'm gonna do a demo right now, so just to prove my point. So we're gonna be logging in, -p, okay, then we're gonna use the practice database. let me check the tables again. All right, now let's create the test table. Table test, and then the column name mynum. Of course, we're gonna specify TINYINT. Oops, no underscores, just TINYINT. Alright, there we go. And then we're gonna describe it. Describe test. Alright, there's one thing that I need you to know that I'd also like to point out. Remember display width? This is actually the display width. Alright, this is not the size. By default, if you don't specify a display width here, it's gonna default to 4. Okay, it's just the display width, so just don't think about it. It's not the size. Alright. Okay, so right now, since we are actually, again, we're actually signed, we'll do some experiment. I'm gonna input a number. Let's say insert into table test row or column mynum values is equal to -128. Okay, so it should accept it, right? Okay, alright, it did. And then we're gonna do a select. I'm gonna say all from test. No problem. Now let's try, let's say 129 negative 129, which is more than the agreed upon 128. Boom, you'll get that error. See, out of range for column mynum at row 1, meaning this is out of range. It will only accept 128, -128, since it is signed. Alright, get my point? Now let's try inserting 127 positive. Alright, so no problem. I'm going to do a select from test. Okay, as you can see, it's there. Then let's try inserting 128 positive. Alright, so yep, you violated the agreement for our signed. That's why you got this error, because you've inputted 128, which is more than the allowed size. Alright, so that's for the sign. So what about the unsigned? For the unsigned, let me just try to drop the table just to clear it out. Drop, or maybe delete from test, and let's just double check. Test, it's gone. Alright, so actually we need to alter the table. We need to change the actual value. We need to include the modifier. Okay, so we can actually use alter or just drop the table. So, but I'm going to show you one command, which is the alter table. Okay, then test. This one will actually just modify the column name num TINYINT, This time we're going to specify unsigned. Right spelling, unsigned. Okay, and there. Then let's describe it again. Test. Alright, again, just a reminder that this one right here, this one is not the size. This is the display. Okay, I'm gonna spell it out for you, display, so you won't forget width. Alright. Display width. This is not the size, alright? Now you can see that it is a signed number. Alright, so let's try to insert some values right now. So let's say insert into table. Oh no, it's actually test. Test and column name minum, then values 0. Okay, so it should accept it. Alright, no problem right there. Select from test. Alright, no problem. And then let's try inserting -1. It's the same deal. You'll have an error because, let me just try to point it out to you guys. Signed is minimum of 0. You got -1. That's what you violated the agreement. Alright, and then let's insert the max, which is 255. There we go. Do a select again. Test. Alright, perfect. And of course, let's try to mess it up again by inserting a bigger value than 255. Again, let me point the one out that we are signed. Max signed. Max value is 255. But you've inserted 256, so alright, it actually complained. Okay, so hope you get the idea for unsigned and signed numbers. Alright, and what else? Yeah, I believe that's it. So yeah, so just remember that, just a recap. Let me just go back to the first one. So these are just the things that you need to keep in mind. Alright. Okay, again, these are just the same. Boolean and TINYINT. In fact, we're gonna try it. Let's see. Create table test2. And that's another table right there. Let's say okay, column or minum. Let's say bool. And then I would say describe test2. See, it defaults to TINYINT, but it gives you a different display width. But yeah, let's just forget about it for now. And then my bool, we're gonna create another table, but we're gonna create Boolean as the, or use Boolean as the data type. And then describe test3. C will always default to TINYINT as well. Alright, the only difference is the display format. Earlier it gives us 4. Alright, so hope you understand the concept of signed and unsigned, using it in your table. So alright, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching my video, and hope you've come this far. And then yep, click like and subscribe to help out the channel. And then if you have uh, lots of, I don't know, if you want to support me, just you can visit my Patreon page. Alright, so as always, have a nice day, and I'm looking forward to see you in the next video. Alright, bye bye, have a nice day.